I make no exaggeration when I say that the John Dies at the End novels are some of my favorite written works in the English language. And there's a passage from the fourth book, If This Book Exists, You're in the Wrong Universe, that has stuck with me ever since I first read it. It's a moment when we finally get to see inside the thought process of a character named Joy Park, a Gestalt Eldritch entity made up of 777 reality-altering extra-dimensional insects referred to in-universe as fuckroaches that take the form of a Korean adult film star to any human that lays their eyes upon her. When Joy looked at humans, she saw animals so detached from the food chain that their boredom was eating them alive. None of their instincts made sense to them. They were primates adorning themselves in skins and shiny things, all swagger and posturing with no idea what it's for. They were grotesque and ridiculous, and she loved them so much. They were all doing their best, and their best was just an appalling disaster. There is, of course, more to this sequence than what I've just read, and it really actually is a beautiful moment in context. But the thing about this entire sequence that has always stuck out to me is that in a universe that is as steeped in cruel, uncaring Lovecraftian terror as this one is, Joy's outlook on humanity offers a differing perspective. She is a being so far outside of humanity that our existence should hardly even register to her, but instead of contempt or disgust, she feels warmth towards humanity. Almost as a refutation to the same cosmic horror that her existence would imply, Joy offers the concept of cosmic love. There's something beautiful to that idea. The idea that a being so alien and above us could look upon humanity and see something worth loving. Most, if not all, religions sell themselves on that very concept. I mean, who wouldn't want to matter to something whose very existence would seemingly imply that we never would? I bring this up because the more I think about Sucker for Love, A Date to Die For, the more parallels as well as subversions I see between this game and Joy's mentality. The duology of games that comprise the Sucker for Love series are some of my favorites in recent memory, and it isn't difficult to see why. The games are anime-inspired point-and-click adventure/dating sims where the objective is to romance horrors from beyond the veil of time and space that appear to the player as a selection of colorful waifus. What makes these games so special, though, is that even though they could just stop right there and be a good time based on that central concept alone, the dev clearly understood that in order to get the most out of the concept, they would be remiss not to address the horror story origins of these characters. Originally, I had planned to make a video exploring the narrative of the first game and trying to unpack exactly why it works so well, but then I lost track of time and the sequel, A Date to Die For, came out, and suddenly it was all I could think about. So to that end, today we're going to take a look at what makes the second game so narratively satisfying, and maybe one day we'll circle back to talking about the first. And hey, this still makes sense in context when you think about it because the new game is a prequel. Oh, mild spoiler warning, by the way. Actually, on that note, yeah, this video is going to contain a lot of spoilers, including the ending. So, if you have not played these games yet, please go do so as soon as possible. Neither of them are super long, and both of them cost way less than they're worth, especially when you consider the fact that they are both fully voice-acted, which is something not a lot of full-priced games can say. Okay, so if I had to summarize in just one word what makes A Date to Die For's narrative so satisfying, I would go with subversion. At just about every turn, the game leverages subversion of the player's expectations to tell a story that challenges their preconceived notions without feeling like a series of hollow gotcha moments. Except for the literal gotcha moments, I suppose. Certainly didn't expect to nearly shit myself playing a dating sim, but the first time this happened, I nearly jumped out of my chair, and that's no exaggeration. Players going into this game after playing First Date, and I guess not paying attention to any of the marketing materials, will more than likely be bringing in a set of expectations based on their experiences from the prior game, in which we played as a chaotically horny king amongst men who was willing to destroy all of reality for a taste of Eldritch nookie. Honestly, based. However, we get to our first subversion of expectations when we meet our new protagonist, Stardust, who is the absolute sweetest cinnamon roll in existence, and who happens to be asexual. Did I mention that the object of our affection in this game is the black goat of the woods with 1,000 young? The closest thing to a fertility goddess that Lovecraft ever wrote about? Trust me, I'm something of a Lovecraft expert. I'm the guy who wrote the video about Lovecraft's influence on Ed, Edd, and Eddy. Back on topic, though. First Date saw players taking on the role of Darling as he completed a series of rituals and incantations at the behest of the various Eldritch cuties in order to twist his body and soul into more suitable forms before finally waking the sleeping entities from the dreams that created our reality and getting a little closer to earning a smooch with every correctly performed ritual. This was all of Darling's own volition, and that's what made it so amusing, the triple H of horror, humor, and horny. In contrast, Stardust does not begin her adventure looking to get some incomprehensible action, but instead finds herself the victim of a Silent Hill 2ing by way of the shadow over Innsmouth. A letter from her missing parents turns out to not be as real as she might have expected, and before we know it, she finds herself in her grandmother's now abandoned home. Out of desperation at being trapped on all sides by cultists, she gambles on a ritual in a mysterious spellbook and summons Roxanne the All-Mother, kicking our story into full motion. As I stated previously, the operative word of A Date to Die For is subversion, and this is where we again see that subversion come into play. Roxanne is a flirty goat MILF because of course she is. She literally exudes an aura of horniness that, in her own words, amplifies lust 1,000-fold. But Stardust is quick to point out that 1,000 times 0 is still 0. And thus our relationship dynamic is set. We have the intrinsically horny Roxanne and our ace protagonist who, while hopelessly gay, does not experience sexual attraction. And frankly, this is hilarious. As part of the game mechanics, you actually have access to a spray bottle that Stardust can use on Roxanne whenever she gets a little too fired up, and which you will only use if you are a coward! It's also during these initial interactions with Roxanne that we learn of the next subversion that the game has to offer. Roxanne is actually the victim of her own cult. Every time she sleeps and dreams up the world that Stardust lives in, Roxanne is summoned and tortured by the Thousand in exchange for power, wealth, or whatever they want from her, all at the behest of her former human lover, Buck. Buck is actually the major antagonist throughout the course of the game, and the root of why he is the way he is lies in the interpretation of immortality found in the world of Sucker for Love. You see, when Buck and Roxanne were dating, he errantly stole a kiss from her. However, in doing so, he had immortality thrust upon him. What that means for him, though, is that whenever Roxanne awakens and ends the dream he lives in, he persists in the nothingness between existences, waiting for her to dream again. In addition to this, the injuries sustained by his immortal body persist for all of eternity, meaning that if he breaks an arm, he's going to feel that for the rest of his infinite life. So he's immortal, angry, in constant pain, and blames Roxanne for all of it, meaning that every time she dreams again, Buck gathers his cult to once again summon and torment Roxanne, ensuring that every dream she has is a nightmare. In the first game, our protagonist had a simple goal represented by the heart meter in the top right corner: seduce the girls and get that smooch. Roxanne's meter, however, starts out completely filled with 3 broken hearts. She's traumatized, unable to put her full trust and faith into anyone. I mean, look at this poor creature. How could anyone see this and not want to just give her the biggest hug while telling her everything will be okay? So our goal is established. The only way to help Roxanne is to banish her from our existence and thus end the dream. The goal we work towards to help the object of our affection is ultimately the goal of tearing her away from us. It's heartbreaking, but it's for the best. And so we go about a series of rituals that ultimately lead to the end of the dream, but not before getting the opportunity to make a choice that shows us exactly the kind of person that Stardust is. Our major antagonist for the first chapter is Nanny, a super cute gyaru who is so head over heels for Buck that she is willing to kill Stardust in order to keep her away from him. This comes to a head when Buck catches Nanny in an errant shotgun blast as a matter of collateral damage while trying to reclaim the ritual book. It is at this moment that the player can choose to perform a ritual to heal Nanny, much to Roxanne's protest. If the player allows Stardust to save Nanny, then Nanny comes to her senses and realizes just how much she's been manipulated, that she was in her own way just as much a victim of Buck's as anyone else. This is an important learning moment for Roxanne. She had been willing, even eager, to leave Nanny for dead, and not exactly unjustifiably so. But Stardust, the human golden retriever that she is, refuses to give up on humanity, and in doing so shows Roxanne that abuse can be a cycle, but it is a cycle that can be broken by those willing to commit to doing so. Nanny thus saved, Stardust completes the first chapter by uprooting the Black Woods and ending the dream, freeing Roxanne in the process at the cost of her own existence. So, the story is over, and... oh. Yes, much like that cycle of abuse we had just discussed, we learned that Roxanne's dreams are also a cycle. So we find a new instance of Stardust awakening in Sacramento once again. Through fragmented memories from her previous existence, this new Stardust realizes that she must once again free Roxanne by uprooting the Black Woods. And I emphasize this once again because it's another important subversion. This isn't a time loop story. The Stardust that we played as in the previous chapter no longer exists. She died with her world, and this new Stardust has just inherited some memories of that experience. Even knowing that, she sees that the Black Woods exist once more, and so she rushes to summon Roxanne once again to free her. This is what makes the story of this game so beautiful. It's not the done-to-death anime time loop story in the vein of Steins Gate or ReZero, where we have a single protagonist going through multiple timelines in an attempt to set things right. Instead, we have ourselves a protagonist who knows that every time she succeeds, she will die. But she is still willing to give her life to free the woman she loves from torment. The unifying thread amongst every instance of Stardust is that even when faced with her own cosmic insignificance, she persists. In the second chapter, we learn that by setting Nanny free in the previous reality, we freed her from the cycle of abuse, and she is no longer amongst the 1,000 in this new instance of the world. And thus, Stardust's goal becomes clear. By reaching out and freeing the 1,000 from Buck's influence, every new reality can become that much brighter. This is shown in the second chapter of the game when the antagonistic muscle mommy Billy chases us down over and over again, with each new death at her hands adding another tally on the wall of the mansion. We only unlock the true ending of this chapter and thus the final chapters of the game when we show Billy how many times we faced her down and refused to give up, proving our strength of will and earning her respect. In the penultimate chapter of the game, jumping from chapter 2 to chapter 999, we see an odd sight upon entering the house. Every floor of the mansion is filled with glowing flowers from wall to wall, and later on we learn why. In the second chapter, we performed a ritual called Rot Bloom, as part of a series of rituals to free Roxanne in that reality. Rot Bloom is a ritual that makes us leave a flower that persists between the realities when we die. Each flower in the house marks a previous incarnation of Stardust that died in the process of freeing the 1,000 and awakening Roxanne. Stardust recognizes the significance of this and continues to carry on. Everything that every one of her previous selves did has led to this moment. Buck only has a single cultist left at his command, and Stardust is not going to give up easily. In this chapter, you free the final cultist, Kid, and in doing so, leave Buck with no more allies. Chapter 1000 is now available. In Chapter 1000, we awaken one last time as a new incarnation of Stardust. It's now that we learn more about the real series of events that have led us to this moment, and it's here that we're presented with one final subversion in the form of one last ritual, the Kiss of Immortality. The ritual that we've been told throughout the game caused Buck to lead an everlasting tormented existence, and which has led to his ultimate mental and physical decay, is now in our hands. Stardust understands the gravity of the ritual, and what it means to exist in the cold, empty margins between existence, waiting for Roxanne to dream her once more. But still she tells Roxanne that it's something she accepts for herself, so long as it's okay with her. Stardust begins the preparations for the ritual, but tells Roxanne that she won't finish if she doesn't approve. After 7 real-time minutes of fighting to survive the ritual preparation process, Stardust returns to Roxanne and is met one last time by Buck. It's here that we learn the truth. It was never just about tormenting Roxanne. His ultimate goal was to torment her to the degree that her screams would awaken the Eternal Sleeper, this universe's equivalent to Azathoth, whose dreams even dream the other gods into existence. It is during this confrontation that Stardust is only barely able to stop Buck from manipulating other gods into helping him achieve his goal. And as she turns around to face Roxanne at this moment of triumph, Roxanne plants a kiss on Stardust. This moment shows us exactly how much Roxanne is healed. Her torment came at the hands of the one who stole the kiss of immortality from her, someone who now stands next to her, and even still, she takes her own agency and plants that kiss on Stardust. She loves Stardust, and she knows now that she can place her full trust in the woman she loves. This moment is legitimately beautiful to me. I can't articulate how seeing it even at this point still makes me feel. And as the curtain closes on this universe and the game comes to an end, we experience one final subversion of expectations, as we see Stardust and Buck floating in the void between realities. He tells Stardust that eternity in this void will wear her down and make her like him. But Stardust has a different view. Stardust tells Buck that even an infinite void may just contain something that makes existence worthwhile. She then takes him by the hand, and as the credits roll, drags him along a tour of the void and the beautiful sights it contains. Even now, facing the person that has caused her and Roxanne so much torment, Stardust can't help but try to help Buck let go of his pain and find something that can bring him joy. As the credits come to a close, Buck tells Stardust to stop. He begins to realize exactly how narrow his view of existence was. He's seen the beauty of this void firsthand and realizes that if it truly is infinite, then he has an eternity to explore it. Stardust notices that a new dream is starting, and when she asks Buck if he's ready for another confrontation in reality, he tells her that he'd prefer to stay in the void, exploring it with his newly opened eyes. It's a beautiful moment that brings a cap to Buck's story and subverts the expectation that there would, or maybe even should, be a cosmic retribution for Buck's actions, and instead shows the player a more optimistic world, where even Buck can let go of his pain and his hatred. This moment perfectly encapsulates Stardust's character and how she experiences life, and it leads into an absolutely beautiful epilogue in which we see the kind of world that Roxanne is now free to dream of, thanks to her journey alongside Stardust. If you've gotten this far into the video without having played the game for yourself, then I imagine you'd expect that I've pretty much given everything away, but that couldn't be further than the truth. This game has so much to offer in its plot and character writing that I've barely managed to scratch the surface of what makes this game one of my favorites that I've played this year, and I cannot recommend enough that you pick it up and play it for yourself. It's only $13 on Steam, and frankly that's cheaper than most actual dates. In closing, I want to say thank you to the developer Akabaka for making the Sucker for Love games. They're not only some of my favorite stories in gaming, but frankly some of my favorite Lovecraftian stories in general, and I will never stop shouting at everybody I know to play these games for themselves. And to everybody else, I just want to say thank you for watching. Thanks to all of you, Powerfully Pointless is now a YouTube partner channel, and I couldn't have done it without each and every one of you. So before you head out, why not check out one of the videos that helped us get this far? If you like Lovecraftian stuff, you'll want to check out my video on Gate Ruler, the trading card game where the Lovecraftian gods are the primary antagonists. And in the meantime, just remember that this has been a powerfully pointless video, but I hope you enjoyed it anyways. Peace out. Also, what was with the green butterfly? There has to be some sort of significance there. Every single interactable object in the game is green. It's got some sort of unique text about, oh, there's missing a spider, and there's a spider in the spellbook when you perform one of the rituals, but god damn it, me and Kyrat tried everything we could think of and nothing worked. Does it have something to do with the bad ending? We didn't go for the bad ending because who the hell would want the bad ending, but it's driving me nuts. What is with the green butterfly?